In this section, I will be demonstrating and discussing a few visual signs. I will try to concentrate on one organ at a time, followed by a mixed collection of cases at the end. Nails. Commonly, we look at the nails of every patient mainly to look for pallor. Notice the pale white color of these nails on the right side compared with a normal hand on the left side, clearly indicative of severe anemia. You should also look at the palms, conjunctiva and tongue for pallor, because nails themselves are sometimes whitish in color and may give a wrong impression of anemia. This patient needs a hematinic and antihelminthic. Note the pale white tongue of severe anemia. Koilonychia. Another important sign that you may often see in anemic nails is koilonychia or concave nails or spoon-shaped nails. These are in sharp contrast to normal nails on the left side, which are convex. And this is a characteristic of iron deficiency anemia. In addition to administering iron in the form of Imperon injections and oral iron, we should also try to find out the cause of iron deficiency. The commonest cause, especially amongst farmers, is hookworm infestation, and in females, menorrhagia. In early stages or in a mild case, the nail may be just flat with loss of convexity. Note again in close-up view that in this early case on the left side, the nail is just flat with loss of convexity. The convexity of these nails will be regained after the iron deficiency has been corrected. Cyanosis. Here we see on the left side cyanotic nails with a bluish discoloration, which is due to presence of reduced hemoglobin in capillary blood. In central cyanosis, the tongue and the mucous membranes are also cyanosed, while in peripheral cyanosis, only the limbs and nails are cyanosed. The hand in the center shows normal pink color. Compare it with the cyanosed hands on both sides and note that even the fingertips have bluish discoloration. Clubbing of the nails occurs due to vasodilatation and soft tissue swelling of the fingertips and the nail beds. Clubbing usually indicates chronic suppurative lung disease like bronchiectasis, lung abscess, or bronchogenic carcinoma or cyanotic congenital heart diseases. In the early stages, the angle of the nail bed with respect to the phalanx increases and becomes flat. See the angle of about 160 degrees between the nail and the skin of the phalanx in the normal finger on the right side, whereas on the left side, the nail and the finger form a straight line. Then there is excessive curvature of the nails giving a parrot beak appearance. Note the excessive convexity of the nails in all directions. And in the last stage, there is bulbous swelling of the finger ends giving a drumstick appearance in advanced clubbing. Note again the excess convexity of the nails and the bulbous swelling of the fingertips in third degree clubbing. And can you appreciate the similarity to a parrot beak? Sometimes clubbing may be present in only one finger without any apparent cause or following local trauma or nerve injuries. In this case, only the little finger shows clubbing while the other fingers are normal. This is of no practical significance, but generalized clubbing should make you think of suppurative lung disease. Rarely, clubbing may be seen in only one hand, as in aortic aneurysm or arteriovenous fistula in the arm. Note the isolated clubbing of the little finger. Mycotic infections of the nails are very common, especially in housewives whose hands are constantly in water. One or more nails may be affected. Milder infections may be treated with griseofulvin for 2 to 3 months and local antifungal ointments. But badly affected and deformed nails such as these have to be removed surgically and then the nail bed treated with antifungal ointment like clotrimazole. See the index finger. The nail is only mildly affected. At this stage, it can be treated with medical treatment. But once the nail is black and deformed, it has to be removed. Now we shall see a few conditions seen on the tongue. A pale white tongue is the general practitioner's tool for diagnosing anemia. Only don't mistake a coated tongue for pallor. See the oral mucosa also, which will be pale in anemia. Many of our patients come after eating pan, which stains the tongue red. In these patients, you must rely on the color of the buccal mucosa and conjunctiva. Now in this case, note the cyanosis or bluish discoloration of the tongue and the lips. This is central cyanosis. It is due to cyanotic congenital heart diseases, in this child Fallott's tetralogy. If an adult breathless patient has cyanosis, it is due to severe respiratory distress and inadequate oxygenation. And you should also keep in mind a heart attack or myocardial infarct causing cyanosis. Compare this cyanosed tongue with the normal pink color of the mother's tongue. Tongue with loss of papillae. It is seen in anemia and particularly in vitamin B complex deficiencies. Treat it with vitamin B complex injections and tablets plus hematinics. A bald and bright red tongue is seen in niacin, that is B6 deficiency. The bald tongue with loss of papillae due to B complex deficiency. Here note the black pigmentation of the tongue, very common in our population, and it is of no particular significance. Note the irregular black pigmentation over this tongue. Prominent papillae and excessive furring is also seen in varied conditions like mouth breathing, smoking, dyspepsia, constipation, chronic fevers, etc. So overall, it is a non-specific finding, mainly suggesting digestive disturbances. Watch the prominent papillae of this tongue. A fissured tongue with deep furrows is also of no particular clinical significance. Only if the furrows are painful, treat them with high doses of vitamin B complex. Now see this geographic tongue with irregular bald patches. The pattern of these patches may not be constant and may change with time. It's of no significance and giving B complex supplements is not going to make any change in this patient. Just reassure the patient and leave him alone. Aphthous ulcers. This is one of the commonest conditions seen in general practice, where a patient complains of burning and pain on eating chilies, and there are one or more tiny inflamed ulcers over the tongue or buccal mucosa. They are treated with high doses of vitamin B complex. Locally, apply a soothing lotion like glycerin borax or anesthetic preparation like xylocaine ointment or Zyte lotion. The aphthous ulcers, as seen on the lateral margin of the tongue, are self-limiting and heal within a week, but they tend to recur. If an ulcer persists for more than 2 weeks, then malignancy should be kept in mind. See the multiple aphthous ulcers on this tongue, and see the large ulcer on the undersurface of this tongue. If an ulcer is large and hard, it should be biopsied. Leukoplakia. When there is a white patch on the tongue or cheek, what we term as leukoplakia, you should be aware that it is a precancerous condition, and this tongue does show a suspicious lesion in the proximal end of the white leukoplakic patch. Leukoplakia is common in our population, where chewing tobacco is a very common practice, and its serious significance should be kept in mind. Note this case of suspected carcinoma of tongue. Note the everted margins of the growth suggestive of malignancy. There is no ulceration, but we must palpate the tongue for induration, and if the base is firm to hard, then the patient must be referred for biopsy. Again, a typical case of carcinoma of the right tongue margin. Note that it is raised above the tongue surface and the base was very hard to palpation. Now here we see a white patch of leukoplakia on the inner mucosa of the cheek. This needs to be biopsied and when possible excised, even if it is not malignant, because the risk of malignant change is very high. Leukoplakia is a very common finding in pan eaters. Look at the typical tiny aphthous ulcer on the inner surface of the lip mucosa. Just as over the tongue, aphthous ulcers are common over the buccal mucosa. They are treated with high doses of vitamin B complex, local glycerin borax or xylocaine ointment, and if they are recurrent or multiple, a course of Flagyl and antifungal nystatin lotion. Here we see a case of acute tonsillitis with inflammation of the tonsils, and pus is seen through the tonsillar crypts. Acute tonsillitis is treated with steam inhalations, salt water gargles, an antibiotic, and aspirin or any anti-inflammatory drug. Once the acute attack subsides, tonsillectomy may be advised if the attacks are severe or recurrent. Acute follicular tonsillitis. A white patch or slough on the tonsils or pharynx should make you alert about diphtheria, which luckily is quite uncommon today due to immunization programs. Such patches are seen in the tonsillar fossa in the week following tonsillectomy, and that is normal. But when diphtheria is suspected, refer the patient to a hospital for throat swab study and treatment. A white patch in the throat, especially in children, should be investigated for diphtheria. Following broad spectrum antibiotics, especially in diabetics, there may be fungal superinfection of the buccal mucosa, giving rise to oral candidiasis with multiple white coated patches in the mouth. Note the white patches on the palate of this patient. It is treated with local nystatin solution and oral antifungal drugs, along with the control of diabetes if present. This is a malignant growth over the cheek, which should be immediately referred to a surgeon. Note the raised and fleshy growth over the mucosa of the inner surface of the cheek, which is protruding at the angle of the mouth. It was firm to hard to palpate, and as we will now see, the submandibular lymph node was also enlarged and hard. All definite signs of malignancy. I will stress here again that whenever malignancy is suspected, always palpate for regional lymph nodes. This is a mucus cyst, a simple cyst on the inner aspect of the lip which is harmless, but it ruptures and recurs, and it has to be excised. Excision is done under local anesthesia, for which the patient should be referred to a surgeon. A simple mucus cyst of the lips. Note the hypertrophy of the gums. Patients on phenytoin sodium therapy for epilepsy commonly get it if dental hygiene is not maintained properly. If the hypertrophy is excessive, the hypertrophied portion is excised by gingivectomy. The best way to prevent it is by maintaining proper dental hygiene. So you must give these instructions to your epileptic patients who are put on phenytoin therapy. Here is another epileptic patient on phenytoin sodium therapy with mild hypertrophy of the gums and poor dental hygiene. Now we will look at the face. A puffy face should make you think of three common conditions: renal edema, myxedema, and steroid faces. Notice the typical renal edema, maximum around the eyes, more in the mornings, in a case of nephrotic syndrome. If it is of sudden onset with scanty red urine, think of acute glomerulonephritis. See the distribution of edema, which is mainly in the loose tissues of the face with minimal dependent edema of the legs. Notice the myxedema face. Note the dull look on the face. And though we cannot hear her hoarse and slow voice in this cassette, I will demonstrate the slow relaxation of the ankle jerk, which is as confirmatory of myxedema as the costly T3, T4, TSH studies. See how slowly the muscle relaxes. 100% diagnostic of myxedema. This is another patient of hypothyroidism. Though it is uncommon in males, that dull look in the eyes is characteristic. Steroid face is also similar and should be thought of if the patient is on steroids say for bronchial asthma or some skin disease. This is Rhizus sardonicus of tetanus. It gives an appearance of laughing due to contraction of the facial muscles. I will demonstrate the other signs of tetanus also. I am asking her to open her mouth, but she can't. She has lockjaw. Lockjaw is the earliest sign of tetanus. See the neck stiffness. See the stiffness of the muscles of the hands. So in every case of muscle stiffness, lockjaw and convulsions, keep in mind tetanus. See the stiffness of the legs. And see that even the abdominal muscles are stiff. Bell's palsy or facial nerve palsy. A healthy person suddenly finds on waking up one day that the mouth is deformed and one eye is not closing. See the absence of wrinkles on the left side of forehead on looking up. Ask the patient to close the eyes and note the turning up of the eyeball on closing the eyes, termed as Bell's sign. Tell the patient to smile and the affected angle of the mouth does not move. Let him blow up his cheeks and air leaks through the left angle of mouth. This is left facial palsy. If this patient has pain or some pathology in the ear, refer the patient to an ENT surgeon. Otherwise, treat him with high doses of vitamin B-plex and steroids for 2 to 3 weeks. Parotid swellings are also often seen in practice. Mumps is very common in children with diffuse swelling of both parotids, which needs only symptomatic treatment. Benign mixed parotid tumors such as these are seen to be present under the ear lobule for several years. If the swelling raises the ear lobule, it is definitely arising from the parotid gland. When parotid swelling is present, also look for facial palsy, and the patient must be referred for surgery, especially if the swelling is long-standing, large, nodular or adherent. See a large and nodular parotid tumor in this old man. Malignancy must be ruled out.